all, it's me, Allison. Welcome back to my channel. I literally cannot believe that we are in the month of July. I feel like this year has gone by so fast. So in the spirit of that, I thought it would be fitting for me to come check in and reflect on my year of reading so far with the mid-year book tag. Now I understand that June is technically the mid-year point, but unfortunately I just did not get around to filming this until now in July. So I'm gonna still give you my mid-year reflection, even though we're kind of past mid-year now. This year I decided that I was going to set my Goodreads goal way smaller than I did last year. I think last year my goal was 100 and I exceeded it, reading 120, but that really stressed me out last year because I didn't give myself time to breathe. I was reading constantly. So this year I just didn't want to stress myself out this much, so I did set my Goodreads goal to 80, and around May I moved it to 90 just because I was so far ahead with my reading. And then before this video I did move forward with moving it to 100 again, just because I'm so far ahead. And why not go ahead and try and reach a bigger goal? So currently I'm at 69 books out of 100, which makes me 18 books ahead of schedule, which is honestly not that bad. I haven't had a slump this year, knock on wood. So I've been pretty consistent with my reading thus far, and I've read a lot of books, so let's get into those questions and what I liked and what I didn't like from this year so far. So the first question is the best book I've read in 2025. Now, after compiling all of my Goodreads data, I found that out of the 69 books that I've read, only 2 have been 5 stars for me, which is kind of disappointing. And these 2 are completely different books from each other. They could not be more different if they tried. The first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry, and the next one is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi, which I'm not sure if I'm saying that author's name right, but that is the 3rd book in the Shatter Me series. It's hard for me to choose which one because both gave me that pit feeling in my stomach that always catapults me and compels me to give a book a 5-star rating. Happy Place did move its way to the #1 spot as far as Emily Henry books go. I just love a second chance romance, and I feel like this one really pulled at the heartstrings, which I obviously love. I love when a book makes me emotional. I just love the way that Emily Henry can punch you in the gut with one sentence, and with Happy Place, she was literally beating me to a pulp. It was a stunning, beautiful, and emotional story about soulmates finding their way back to each other. I mean, chef's kiss. And then we move on to Ignite Me, which I said was a YA dystopian book series that is centered around a girl with a lethal touch. In this book, our female main character, Juliet, steps into the person that she's meant to be. She's no longer this damsel in distress. She is someone who is willing to fight against oppressors, fight for those who can't, and fight for what she believes in, which has been a big shift compared to how she was in the first 2 books. So that is some of the reason why I found this book so enjoyable enough to give it a 5 stars. Also in this book, we do get to know more about Erin Warner, who is a mysterious, morally gray character who she's falling in love with, and then obviously in this one they do finally fall in love. So that is also why Ignite Me really sparked that 5-star review, but I cannot choose between the 2 because both of them made me feel so many things in different ways. So I'll just say the best books that I've read in 2025 is Happy Place and Ignite Me. Okay, so the next question is the best sequel that I've read this year. Hold on, I think I have it back here. There we go. And to answer your question, that would be Power Play by Chelsea Curto. The DC Star series by Chelsea Curto has literally gripped me by the throat, and I didn't think we were going to get better than book 1, but book 2 was a really good sequel, I have to say. The DC Star series is a hockey romance series. They're all interconnected standalones about different guys on the team obviously finding love. Power Play specifically was just really entertaining. One, look how thick it is. There was so much content to go through, but also it was a grumpy sunshine trope, and when I say Liam Sullivan is the grumpiest male main character you will ever read, I mean that with my whole chest. He genuinely hates everyone but Piper, which obviously made this very entertaining because everybody on the team is trying to get him to love them back. It's so funny. Another thing that I really love about Chelsea Curto's books is that all of her female main characters are super strong and independent. They overcome a lot of adversity, especially in men-dominated fields. So I feel like this book did a really good job of showcasing Piper, who is a sports broadcaster, and how she got what she deserved in the position in which she was like the ringside reporter. As a former TV reporter, I feel like this book did a really good job of showcasing what it's really like to be in an industry like this. And I think Piper overcame it very well while also keeping intact of her femininity, which I really enjoyed. And on top of having such a strong, independent woman, all of these men support their ladies like their life depends on it, and basically goes with the flow with whatever they want, whatever they say, and support them wholeheartedly, which obviously I'm obsessed with. So this is why Power Play was on the list from what, oh, hello. I totally forgot that I had these fan art things inside this book. Wait, sweet. Anyway, that was a fun surprise. That's why I think Power Play was one of my top sequels of this year. The next sequel that I also really enjoyed this year was Exodus by Kate Stewart, which is part of the Ravenhood trilogy. This book really was just such a horrible emotional roller coaster, like in the best way possible, but also in the worst way possible. This is the book that has the infamous line, "We love rainy days, don't we, baby?" which is like big all over TikTok. So obviously I knew going into this book that it was going to be heartbreaking. It just did not prepare me for just how heartbreaking it actually was. But despite all the heartbreak, I think it was a really good sequel just because in book one, the female main character has been left in the dark for all of this drama that's going on, and in this next one it gave more context of who she's dealing with, what's going on, context of why people are doing the things that they're doing. So I felt like book two was more of an eye-opener more than anything, and I really enjoyed getting to know where we're going for the rest of the series. Also in this book, you do meet her actual love interest that she ends up with by the end of the series in this book. So you kind of see how their like enemies to lover vibe kind of start, and you see it like progress. And then obviously when you get into book three, that's when all things are like laid to rest. So that's why I think Exodus was just such a good second book, because you were building on the momentum and the mystery that all of the readers were feeling in book one. And book two, everything gets explained. You actually meet characters that you want to see. So that's why I think I really enjoyed that one too. So the next question is a new release you haven't read but want to. And I would have to say the one that keeps popping up in my mind is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I've never read anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid before. I know that like historically she's a pretty good author and people seem to love her books a lot, but like I've just like never picked one up. So I am excited to kind of dive into Atmosphere. Everybody on my Goodreads has given it a 5 stars. I literally have not seen anything less than a 5 star, on top of everybody being like, I'm sobbing my eyes out, which obviously I love. I want to cry when I read a good book. So I am excited to read this one. But I think the thing that really intrigues me about this book is the setting of like the 1980s space shuttle program. That's not something you typically read about, which I think is interesting. It's also a story about the extraordinary lengths that we as humans go to live and love beyond our limits. As a super emotional person, I think that this would be a really good read for me. So I'm really hoping that I'll pick it up soon and maybe get a third 5 star under my belt before the end of the year. So the next question is the most anticipated read for the second half of the year. And I have to say, I think this is my most anticipated read for the whole year. And that's Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which comes out October 7th, I believe. Mate is the sequel to Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is actually one of my favorite books of all time. I'm actually going to reread it this year just in anticipation of reading Mate. So at the end of this book, you get a small snippet of what the next book is going to be about, and it's completely obvious that it is going to be yet another Ali Hazelwood that is going to choke me with tension and angst. I literally can't wait. Also, it's just really hard to find good werewolf literature these days, so I thank Ali Hazelwood for her service in feeding us so thoroughly. I'm actually buzzing with excitement for this next one. As a Hermione fanfiction reader myself, this is a great big win for our community. Alchemized by Sin Lin Yi comes out September 23rd, and obviously, you know, I pre-ordered it about a year ago. Like the moment she put out the pre-order, I did move forward with purchasing it. For those of you who are not familiar with the fanfiction space, specifically Hermione fanfiction, which is obviously Draco and Hermione from the Harry Potter series, Alchemized is the published version of Manacled, which I think is probably the most popular Hermione fanfiction in existence. I read Manacled last October and still have not gotten over it. And now, yay, come September, I'm going to be able to reread it again in a different light, obviously, because it's not going to be published as Hermione. Manacled was one of my top reads of 2024. It is a disgustingly heartbreaking read that literally stamps its way onto your heart. I am beyond words of how excited I am to see this work of literature be published for the world to have. So come September, I will be putting myself through pain once again. Yay. The next question is the biggest surprise. Now I have two of these, one big surprise in a good way and one big surprise in a bad way. The first one is in a good way, and that's going to be Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. First of all, I just take a moment for the beautiful sprayed edges. Hello. This book was Daphne's first dip into the romantasy space, and she did it so flawlessly. I cannot explain. I consider myself a snob when it comes to fantasy books, so I didn't really have high expectations for this one, but she really blew me away with how good this book was. She really surprised me with just how good her storytelling was and how refreshing the world building was in this book. I feel like it wasn't copy paste of every other fantasy novel you've ever read, which was obviously refreshing. It also had so many twists and turns that just really cooked up that drama that we all love in a fantasy novel. So I was really impressed by this, and I'm excited for the next one. Now on to the book that surprised me in a bad way. Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood was just not what I was expecting. I was really anticipating this book, one, because it was the sequel to Not in Love, but honestly, this was just a flop. I just found that the female main character and the male main character of this book were just so obnoxious and immature, despite their constant nagging about how old and mature they actually are. This was a pretty steep age gap romance that had the potential to be so good, but the constant comments to each other about their age just started to make me feel icky about the relationship by the time they actually got together. Also, it just took entirely way too long for these two to actually get together by the end of this book, so I wasn't really that impressed, I'll be honest, which kind of hurts my heart because I'm a huge Ali Hazelwood fan. The next question is favorite author, new or debut to me, and I have a few of these. Now, as I stated earlier, Chelsea Curto is obviously one of those authors that I have been completely obsessed with this year. I've read all of her Daisy Stars books, and I met her in March, so obviously I have been going on and on about her in basically every video that I've posted. So I think that kind of just speaks for itself. But another author that really surprised me this year that I didn't even really mean to pick up, it was kind of out of nowhere, was Kennedy Ryan. I know that Kennedy Ryan is a pretty popular author, so when I picked up her Hoops series this year, I became completely obsessed. One thing that I've noticed about Kennedy Ryan's books is that she tends to focus on the emotional journey and self-discovery of her female main characters with a dash of romance, which leads to just a beautiful story about strong, independent women. She also tackles pretty heavy topics in a very graceful and respectful way, which is something that I can really appreciate. I seriously just can't wait to read more of her books. And the third author that was new to me this year that has become one of my favorite authors is Tahereh Mafi. Once again, don't know if I'm saying that right, but as I stated earlier, she is the author of the Shatter Me series. Reading Mafi's work felt like I was reading poetry. Her use of metaphors and figurative language really packed a punch. Every sentence was so powerful to me. She just makes you feel every single emotion, and the way that she can just create such complex characters has me in awe, which leads me into my next question, which is my newest fictional crush, and that's gonna go ahead and be Erin Warner, obviously from the Shatter Me series. I have no choice but to scream from the rooftops of just how much I love Erin Warner. My gosh, why did I wait so long to read this series? From the beginning, Erin is set up as the bad guy in this entire narrative, but he ends up turning into one of the biggest assets for the good guys. Aaron is a man who grew up being told to not show or even have emotions in the first place, which led him to be a very cold and distant person. But the moment he met Juliet, he did everything in his power to show her the love and affection that she deserved, which leads me to the poetry I was speaking about. The way that Aaron Warner yearns is enough to take your breath away. At the end of the day, he's an emotional, gentle man who finally gets to show his emotions after he breaks the chains of his father. The series was so good, and Aaron Warner, girls, go ahead and pick this one up if you haven't. So the next question is a book that made me cry, and I think there is no surprise here that Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins literally made me sob like a newborn baby. Anything Hunger Games related fills me to the brim with emotion, and obviously this book was no different. To see the tragic backstory of Haymitch's life was really hard to read, and the hopelessness that you feel reading all of the Hunger Games books was very heavy in Haymitch's book, that not even winning his games spared him from utter and complete sorrow. Not to mention all the political plays that by the Capitol was enough to make me sick during those games, and I'm specifically talking about Beatty's son Rampart, who had the worst death I think in the entire Hunger Games franchise. And while this book was a somber read, it was hopeful in the end because we know how this story ends. We know that the Capitol gets defeated. So that was like a light, but it was just so sad to see Haymitch suffer for so long to get to that point. Okay, so this next one is a book that made me happy. This was a book by an author that I actually discovered this year, Mr. Sweeney by Piper Rain. This is the third book in the Nest series, which is an interconnected standalone hockey romance series about a team in Chicago. This book was my favorite throughout the whole series. This book is centered around the newest member of the team, Connor, as he crashes the wedding of a woman he literally just met because he was trying to stop her from marrying a horrible fiance. I just loved how this book was just so cutesy and fun, and there were moments where a miscommunication trope really could have shined, and the author did not do that, which I really appreciated. There's nothing that frustrates me more than a miscommunication, so I thank Miss Piper Rain for that. This was a cute, fun, flirty story about recognizing what you deserve and taking it for yourself. Another book that made me happy this year is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This book was such a treat. The banter in this book was just so funny, and the workplace rivalry just led to some really entertaining scenarios. Also, our female main character is like a secret romance author, which he helps her kind of develop her story and help her with writing her book, which I felt was a cute little addition to a cute little romance. But best of all, the romance in this book was a hit. I found myself giggling, kicking my feet, and grinning the entire time. Sarah Adams, all of her books are just such a treat. So the next question is the most beautiful book I bought or received this year. Now, if we're talking like physically beautiful, I would say A Hunger Like No Other by Cressley Cole. Obviously, looking at this cover, it is completely gorgeous. It really draws you in with the colors. It's so beautiful. Unfortunately, like the book was absolutely terrible. Like borderline so horrible. So unfortunately the book itself was heinous, but the cover is gorgeous. But a beautiful book as far as the content goes, I would say The Scattered Bones by Nicole Scarano, I think that's how you say it. This was just a stunning story about a woman who never gave up on the man that she loved and went on a mission that was considered impossible to win in order to have him back in her life. This book was a short read, but it packed so much punch in so little space. The way emotions are described in this book made me physically ache, and I'm not gonna lie, I did tear up reading the epilogue. Scarano's writing is just so enchanting and whimsical to me, and for this to be the first book I read by her, it makes me really excited to read more from this author. The next question is, what books do I need to read by the end of the year? This is my number one need to read by the end of the year. My friends have been literally begging me to pick this up, and I just haven't yet. It's also another Hermione fan fiction, and it is Draco Malfoy in the Mortifying Ordeal of Falling in Love, which actually just got published as, give me a moment, The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Bridget Knightley. Everyone has just raved about this book, and I am so ready to take on my Hermione fanfiction as my personality once again, so this book will be read by the end of the year. Speaking of Harry Potter, I also want to read that whole entire series for the first time this year. I honestly feel like I might vlog that experience. I've never read the Harry Potter books before, which feels blasphemous as a reader, I know, but when those books were super popular, I wasn't into reading. I was also a wee lad, okay? So I never was into them, but now that I'm older, I feel like I can appreciate the books a little bit more. I am going to try and read all of the Harry Potter before Halloween this year. The next question is, what are some books that I want to reread this year? Now, I feel like this year I have reread more books than I typically allow myself to do. I like to try and read a lot of new books, obviously, every year, but I am just itching to reread Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, one of my favorite books of all time, and it's been 2 years since I've actually picked up the book, so I will be moving forward with this when I'm in a slump or just feeling like I need something happy and fun. Like, Yours Truly is the go-to book for that. The next one is also a book that I've mentioned multiple times in this video alone, and it's going to be Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Just because we're getting book 2 in October, I feel the need to reread this one again, not only for my own pleasure, but also just to get some more and refresh myself on the context of everything. So this will also be a reread come September. And lastly, the singular series that altered my DNA for the better has changed my life completely and wholly, and something that I think about literally every single day. The Throne of Glass series will be reread this year. I have not felt anything since finishing this series, and I think that's why my 5 stars of the year have been so low, because after you finish the series, chasing the high that you got reading this series is incomparable. So it's really hard for me to give books 5 stars when they can't even compete with the rest of this series. But nonetheless, it will be reread this year. Next is a book that I enjoyed that had mixed reviews. That's gonna go ahead and be Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This book was highly anticipated, as all Emily Henry books are, but unfortunately this one had a lot of really mixed reviews, which made me scared to actually pick it up. But I will say I did enjoy myself. This book was definitely different from all of Emily Henry's other books, but I also found that the premise was pretty unique and refreshing. I can see why some people didn't enjoy it. It did go back and forth between past and present, but the past was a completely different character from who we are in the present. If you didn't like the past story, you really probably wouldn't have enjoyed the book anyway, which I completely understand. Fortunately for me, I did enjoy both sides of the story, so I enjoyed this read actually. And the last question is 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. I think it's safe to say that having 2 5 stars out of the 7 months of this year thus far is not giving me a lot of hope. I will say this year hasn't been the best reading year imaginable. Everything that I've read has been pretty mediocre. I've had a lot of 3 stars and not a lot of 4s and 5s, which is upsetting. But I will say I do tend to enjoy books in the later half of the year when it's a fall setting or a spooky setting or even a Christmas setting. So I do have hope for the next few months, but I don't have any specific books that I want to say this will be a 5-star, because I don't want to jinx it. But let's just hope there's more 5 stars in my future. Okay, girls, well, there you have it. There is my mid-year book tag. I hope that maybe you also enjoyed some of these books that I also read this year. Like I said, I am really excited for the next half because I'm going to be reading really popular series that people tend to rave about, i.e. Harry Potter. So comment down below any 5-star books that you've read this year. I'll also have links, social media links down below, my Goodreads, my Instagram, my TikTok, my podcast. So be sure to check those out. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well if you don't mind. But for now, bye guys!